Hey everybody, it's Nicole. So today I'm going to talk about really like a change in thought process in trying to figure out how to help all of us, but especially people who are really underserved, make it. So there was an article written about a month ago in the Associated Press, and it was called From Prison to Your Plate. It was an investigation into inmate labor in the prisons in the United States. I'm going to link it in the description below. And it's very long, which is, it has a lot of information, and it discusses all sorts of the process of prison labor that raises the majority of our food that we buy from the stores that we shop in, everyday stores, which are all listed in the article. And I was shocked by that, but I wasn't surprised. I don't know if there's like a difference between the two, but shocked was basically saddened, I guess. The sadness came from the corruption that was listed, kind of explained in the article, and the lack of transparency, the lack of like actual, this is what happens, this is what we do, all of these things. So it was really sad to see the profit that the prisons are making basically with the labor of the prisoners, which is like really horrible, sometimes no wages at all. The conditions that they were in farming, and that we have no idea that we're buying this food and that we are contributing to that process. None of which would lead to any form of rehabilitation, which is what people claim prison may do. I know that's a joke to many people. So there's like a lot of parts of it that I have a lot of opinions about that are just sad and like, oh, of course. But the main thing that I was feeling was that, the school to prison pipeline has been talked about a lot over the last few decades. I think it really did start in the 80s and 90s when I was in school, and I saw it firsthand. Growing up in Southern California, we had a lot of, it was highly populated, a lot of gang violence, a lot of gangs, and a lot of the kids that I knew growing up with, they were in and out of juvenile hall, they called it juvie, and in and out of those schools that basically took you, they were like a prison, but they took you and then you would go back and forth to juvie. And when I started to learn about the school to prison pipeline, as I got older and went to college, I was like, oh yeah, this is exactly how it was for these kids that I grew up with, sadly. And I saw it as a really no way out. Later on, as we got older and we kind of kept up with each other, I saw that they were in and out of prison multiple times. And obviously, there were a lot of people whose sadly lives were very short because of it. But also just a lack of ability and hope to be in a better situation. Now, I know with their children, they of course don't want their children to go through the same thing, but if you're being raised in the same system that promotes that, then it's really hard to get out of it and to help your children flourish in a different way. And especially if you don't know which way they're supposed to go, because this is what you grew up in. So as our schools were ridiculous. They were like ridiculous excuses for a public school, funded by tax dollars, and just violent, ridiculous. We didn't really learn much. And you could see by the time I was in about, I would say 5th grade, the separation between, those they thought were going to make it and everybody else. And then the categories of the everybody else were, they were segregated, I would say, based on race, but then also assumed lack of knowledge, ability, whatever. So I saw that when I was really young. And because a lot of my friends were Latino, and I noticed that they were being tracked in this different way. They weren't being treated the same way that I was. And then because I didn't have the money or support, I wasn't being treated the way that the higher performing kids were. Although I believe we all could have performed higher if we weren't dealing with the trauma of what was going on in school and home and, just the violence in general. So, school to prison pipeline. Okay. I would say, definitely the majority of the kids, my school had 4,500 kids in it. The majority of them, were not able to become successful in the way that they wanted to be in their life. And I would say that many of them ended up in prison. And when I see this article talking about the profits of the prisons with this labor, and then I know that our government, the money that we spend in taxes is also paying for the prisons, but the selling of the products that the prisoners are farming in these horrible conditions to us is making them a huge profit, while the prisoners don't get any of that food, or not much of it. And so they're farming outside and selling to these big corporations, which are selling to these big stores, which we all shop at, and we're supporting all of this. So all I could think was, wow, this is a really good example of how when we're mistreated and when injustice is happening, a lot of people act out and feel like, screw the system, screw the authority, all of this stuff. And they're placed into these, jails, prison, that kind of life. Just a very confined life. And then it goes to where I'm like, how come none of this has been fixed with our school system, right? How come it's gotten worse since I was in school? I graduated in 1998. How is it worse now? They've had over 20 years to fix some of the things that were wrong when I was there, and it's worse and it's more dangerous. It was a different kind of dangerous for us, but it's bad. And I'd love to see the percentage of kids that actually come out with some fulfilling, hopeful dream for themselves. It's just crushed over and over. Now, I'm not saying all of this to be like against everything in this country. I'm saying all of this because they want us to be kept in that position because the profits are so high for them. For us, they want to keep populating these kinds of things like prisons and all of that stuff because they're making like straight profit. I mean, they're barely paying. They don't pay anything for this stuff. And so, of course, they want to keep us in that situation. Of course, they want to keep feeding these kids into that situation. And of course, it's, mostly minorities who are being fed through this school to prison pipeline and now prison farming labor pipeline. And I know that a lot of people who are familiar with the system probably are like, yeah, Nicole, we do labor. Like, that's what we do in prison. And that's horrific. That the way it's being treated and the profits, and that we're not being told, hey, this roasted chicken that you buy was farmed by this penitentiary, and these are the profits that that we're making off of it or whatever. Now I know that that's like, fantasy world that I live in, to be actually transparent like that. But my point I really, really want to make is that you're just feeding into what they want when you go out and, run with the people that you're going to get in trouble with, or do things because you're feeling so stressed and we can't afford things, and you want to go, join into like illegal activities that's going to get you in prison because it's really hard to make it. But if you think about how many of us are out there struggling and how heavily populated our prisons are, and how many mostly people of color in this country are in that situation where they're just like one step away from being incarcerated, or everybody, the people that they know or have, if they make it out, they're incarcerated, if they make it alive, they may get out at some point, they don't get to raise their children, they don't get to have successful relationships, they don't get to have any form of like actual money making, improving your life, building any sort of generational wealth, nothing. Okay. And I know that's all like big far-fetched ideas, but it's really not. It's really not, because if we don't give them what they want, then they're only going to be forced to change. So that's my point. When you rebel and you do the things like illegally rebel, I rebel all the time, but I rebel in a different way. So when you illegally rebel, you are giving them exactly what they want. So the other way would be to not, to understand what's going on, to understand the business behind it all, because this is just one factor, the farming, the food that we buy, but there's a ton of things out there. But if we educate ourselves on why it's happening, how it's happening, what's the history behind it, and what can we do about it, then that's the best form of rebellion. They cannot control you if you do that. And so I don't want this to be like a scary, oh, we have to do this and that, and, they're horrible and whatever. It's reality. It's what we live in. But it's just the more and more we learn about it, the easier it is for us to understand what's going on and how it's happening and how to fix it. So we have the ability to, with the knowledge, we have the ability to fight against all of this. So, like, right now, everybody's all angry with the schools, but they're angry with the schools for a different reason than what I felt angry with the system for. I don't like the system the way it is and the way it's continued, because they get a lot of money from our taxes and from other things, and our children aren't safe. They're not healthy in a healthy environment mentally or physically. And they're not able to actually go to school for what they're supposed to do, which is come out a happy, healthy person that can be successful in life. I feel like the main reason we're in this situation that we're in right now in our society, and how it just feels like, how is this happening? How come it's so bad? How come everything's so bad? And then people are making it sensational. So they're just like blaming this and blaming this person and blaming that. Really, it's been a long time coming. It was a progressive movement, not progressive, but it was a progression of controlling the masses. I mean, that's the best way to say it. Being controlled and uneducated, you just sit there and you hear what they say and you listen and you do what they say. When you're not controlled and you are educated, you get the information that they're saying and you say, wait a second, let me look this. Let me look at this. Wait, what about this? What about that? Well, this happened. So how did it make this happen? Then you say, well, that doesn't sound like a very good idea of how to fix it. Grabbing up your arms and, destroying things and people are probably not, it's probably not going to be the best way to fix the problem. So how can we do this? And do I have a community of people that can help me do this? Well, yeah, you do. Because there's a lot of people out there who have gone through what you're going through, who feel what you're going through. And they can come together instead of coming together and wanting to fight each other, which doesn't solve the problem for very long. It may solve your problems for a minute, but then there's a whole bunch of other problems that happen, and the violence, the cycle just continues. So as far as like a lot of the kids I grew up with in gang life, the skills are incredible. The business skills behind the illegal activity, right? The ability to capture a lot of people and to have a common goal. Like, these kinds of things are really incredible. The experience that they've had in life with their families and the generational trauma, the generational, just experience of everything, those can all be used for like really good things, and helping other people in life understand that there's a lot of leadership in that life. There's a lot of leadership that happens with some really interesting things if you just dissect what it is. So rebelling as far as gaining the intelligence and not letting them control us or control you because you're now incarcerated. Or, yeah, we thought you would do that, and of course you did it, and you're on this list. I mean, I can tell when I was young that by, like I said, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, they were on a list already. And it was pretty accurate, sadly. But there weren't many people who were like, hey, what's going on here? What can I do for you? How can I help you not be in this situation? What do you want for your life? How can I help you get there? What are your issues? Those kinds of things. But that's what really sits with me. All of this stuff is like appalling. Of course, the only way to prevent this kind of me funding this kind of corruption is to grow my own food. And I'm trying to learn how to do that. It's our society isn't built that way. A lot of times you can't find the space for it. Everything's so expensive to buy any kind of land, and then having the skills to like build something on your own, the capital to buy anything. Like, it's really difficult. It's really difficult. But that too can be changed if we were smart about it. So right now, people are just throwing insults and blaming this person and doing all this crazy stuff and threatening violence. But there's no solution in any of that. There really isn't. It's just craziness. It's gone. Everybody, I mean, I just don't understand. The only thing I can put my finger on is, how did we all end up, the majority of people end up in this situation, believing that this was the solution to our problems. And the common thing is, most of us went through our public education system. And then there's, of course, social media. And then there's real life issues, like not being able to afford food and housing. And it's really frustrating. And there's all these people that are super frustrated. And they're trying to figure out who will help them, right? Well, it's not going to be the people at the top. They're at the top for a reason. Some people have really good interests, and I think they try. But really, it's going to be us, the people at or near the bottom. So that's where, change is always made. It's always made from the people who come together with common goals that are relatively peaceful and non-illegal actions, and really get your senses together. I mean, can you imagine like a very tumultuous time in during the civil rights movement here in the United States and all over the world? I mean, people were like educating themselves. You know, they were forming groups and sitting together and reading stuff and learning about history and figuring out who they could talk to and who they could do this with, and like forming their own communities of people to help move forward in their issues, to try to help the people, them and everybody. The more people you have understanding your situation, then the more support you have, and the bigger the numbers of that support, the less that they can control you and just step all over you. Us. So there's a lot of things that we have to work on. A lot. There's a lot of problems. I think we're all like overwhelmed, and then we get all this information coming in all day, every day, and we're like, ah. And then we hear people who are like, oh, just annihilate them. And you're like, all right. No, that's not the answer. No, that's not the answer. Because just when you annihilate somebody, they annihilate you. So it really, I mean, and also for humanity purposes, and for just like, it's just going to make things worse when we do violence. So let's not. And let's use our brains, and let's use our experience and our abilities that we have, like in our shoes. What do we have from our life experience to help us through these situations? And I think this may be one of the biggest things we can do, is look at all of the people in this country. The majority of the people in this country are struggling. And we've been struggling for a long time. People just are capitalizing on it right now and making it feel like it's all new and how is this happening? But it's been happening for a long time. And let's work in groups, work with people that we already know, and say, hey, why don't we try to figure out who's in charge of this situation? Let's look for transparency. What are you doing with all of the money that you're being given? you know, places that are government controlled, you know, like what are you doing with their stuff? It is not successful. Like if when one person getting harmed or killed in a public school should have been enough. It was enough. And there have been solutions. And over the last 25 years, I know they could have solved this problem. I know that. The only thing I can think about this issue and many, many issues is they don't want to solve the problem. Then I think, why don't they want to solve the problem? Well, it keeps us scared. It keeps us nervous, anxious, depressed, in chaos. And what do? We don't have any power at that point. We're scared. We're not thinking of, what can I do with this? And, oh, what happened here? And blah, 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 blah. No, you're just in your head, like nonstop, because you're scared. And these children, this generation that we have right now coming up are just completely riddled with this nonsense. All of the stuff that's going on. The lack of ability to find affordable housing. You know, the lack of ability to have a good job. The violence and the fear and the anger and hatred that they experience in school. They're not learning like things that they need to be learning to have a good life. No, they're going through a bunch of garbage and trying to come out alive, like literally and figuratively, both. And so then there's, substance abuse issues and, our families are just, mental health issues and, there's a lot of things, but all of that contributes to our children really being like, they have no idea what they're supposed to be doing. We're not helping them lead the way. Most of our generation who are raising our children are stuck on our phones and not talking to our children about all these things. I talk to my oldest daughter all the time. She's in high school. Unfortunately, she wanted to attend high school the last 2 years, and it's been a struggle. It's been a real struggle, and I wish I were wrong. I wish I were wrong about what was going to happen to her there. But I wasn't, and it's sad. And all I do is try to keep her getting through it. And I constantly tell her, I will take you out, no problem. I can pick you up anytime. You can come home whenever you want. I don't care what they say. The rules don't matter to me. I'm going to take care of you because you have to spend the rest of your life trying to be healthy and have a good life and not worry about this garbage that's happening. And it's not my fault that the schools cannot get it together. And it's not the school's fault necessarily. Parents are not also getting it together. And then everybody's angry at everybody else. And nobody's actually dealing with the actual, real problems that are causing all of this. So, where do we start? I don't know. We have to start with ourselves. We have to start with our children. We have to start with people in our community and just share love, and share knowledge and sit down and listen. I'm here for you. What do you need? I care for you. What do you need? Who cares, who you want to win the election? Who cares? It doesn't matter to me. I don't care. I don't care because you know what? We've been in this situation for decades and it's just been capitalized on right now. And it's just been thrown out there so much because of social media, but it's been a wreck. Okay, I'm not both siding. I'm not saying that we should support any sort of authoritarianism. We just shouldn't. But really, what it's going to end up with is we have to fix this together. All of us together. All different cultures, like what we believe, everything. We have to care about our children, and we have to care about our lives, and we have the power to stop it. We don't have to buy it. Our country runs on money. It's capitalism. Capitalism. The power that we have from our wallet is more than any lobbyist has. The billions of dollars that our Congress people get, we have more power than them. You don't buy it. Don't buy the $500,000 house. That's not worth $500,000. If it was $150,000 4 years ago, it's not worth $500,000 now. Unless they did some insane, no, they could have rebuilt it and put in an in-ground pool and it still wouldn't have been $500,000. We built our own house with cash for less than $100,000. Okay, and that's when the price of wood was like triple. All right? Let me tell you, if we don't buy it, we don't consume it, they won't do it. But they have us in a frenzy. And there's a shortage. They keep it a shortage. And they keep the prices really high. So we have to maintain that. And then what do? We go work 3 and 4 jobs. We can't pay attention to what actually is going on. We can't get together in a community organization and sit there and talk and understand. We don't have any time. And then we're dealing with the drama and the trauma and the issues that are going on in our kids' school because we can't put our kids in a safe, healthy place where they're going to come home and we can have a discussion over like what they learned and where they want to go with their life. I mean, these kids are going to be adults and they're screwed up because of us. They are supposed to be able to get out of high school and go on with their life and be healthy, successful people, and we help them along the way. No, they're coming out destroyed. And most of us can't not put them in school because we have to work all the time, because we have a high mortgage or a high rent. Food's really high, like everything. And so, but see, this has been a problem since I was young. And that's just because I grew up in Southern California, but still, it was just what was to come. So we've had our kids homeschooled because, except for my daughter these last 2 years, because she really, really, really wanted to go. I put her in community college at 13. She was ready to go. She did amazing in college classes, but she really wanted to go to high school to get the experience. And my God. And I'm sad for her because I wanted it to be different. I wanted to be wrong. I wanted it to be like, I'm jaded. I'm not right. I'm jaded because of my past and my history, but I'm not. Just different problems now, just a disaster. And she's amazing. She's so smart. She's 16 graduating and she's been accepted to, medical programs and all that stuff at different universities. But like, she's suffering because of the emotional. She always just says, Mom, it's just too much. There's just so much. And it's really disheartening. And, I keep telling her that's just a bunch of immature, scared people that aren't being helped, all stuck in a same place for 8 hours a day. And they're angry and they're hormonal and nobody knows what's going on. And they're just like going to cause chaos. Like, this is just what it happens. But reality is we see it in our greater society as well. And I keep trying to figure out, like, do I shelter my kids and just, like, hopefully just drop them in, like, the perfect place later when they're older and they know where to go and they're good and, like, they bypass all of that? Unfortunately, it's all over our society. And so all I can see is that, our public school system put all of us through this. And all these years, we didn't come out flourishing. We came out knowing how to survive a bunch of nonsense. And that quote of you spend the rest of your life trying to get over the first 20 years. I believe that's true, unfortunately, instead of being like successful, healthy people. So all that to say, this article really hit where it's like, that's why they're not fixing things. That's why. It's so profitable. And I know a lot of people are like, well, duh, Nicole, of course. And that's how my husband is. He's like, you know, yeah, of course they wouldn't do that because of this. And I'm like, oh no, optimistic. Like, no, that's not true. That's not how that works. Well, yeah. Unfortunately, I just see more and more and more. But it's not like doomsday, like we don't have an option. Like we do. And we should work together to learn how to fix these things. You know, I know that it's big, but we can find a little thing that we're passionate about and do that. And it's better than the alternative, which is not flourishing. So like one step at a time in the right direction is in the direction that we're happy and healthy in is better than not flourishing. So it's harder. It won't happen quickly, but it's so much better. So I do have ADD, so sorry that was all over the place. But anyways, let's do this. Let's get together and work together and don't let people control our lives. Okay, have a good day.